Okay, it's been a while. It's been a while. In life, we all have different venues of where our joy is. And for me, it is reading. And this is a really good book that I started. And life took over in different ways. And I feel like today I'd like to start back with chapter 11, Hereafter, by Tara Hudson. We have the characters of Amelia, who's a ghost, I believe. You know, she's dead, but she's like a ghost, and she might be in some sort of purgatory or something. I'm wearing my glasses for the first time today to see how that goes with reading. I'm really I'm a hot mess. We have Amelia. We have Joshua, the young boy in high school who nearly drowned and she saved, and he's the only one who can see her, but now he's introduced her to his grandmother, Ruth, who's like a pit bull, and she can see dead people too. So Eli is the other guy, the character, who's like some, I don't know, maybe a negative force or something that's out there in the darkness of the woods. Let's see if I can get into this. Chapter 11. I have no idea how long I wandered after I left Joshua's house. 1 hour, 4, who knew? All I knew was that night had darkened into a sinister black. Unlike the one in the flash I'd experienced earlier, the sky above me didn't glow with stars. Instead, a sickly-looking moon provided the only light. It was a ghost itself, so dull and weak it appeared out of place in the sky, as if it didn't belong. Like me, I thought bitterly, I don't belong here either. Well, maybe I belonged here, on the desolate stretch of road upon which I now walked, but certainly not in the place I'd just visited, the place from which I'd just been unceremoniously banned. Picturing Ruth's sharp eyes and cold voice, I wondered, was she right? I wasn't what she expected from a ghost. So was I worse? Was I really some dark thing from High Bridge like Eli? Some evil force in Joshua's life saving him just as I should wreck him? I certainly didn't feel evil, but I had to ask myself whether my current feelings even mattered. I knew nothing about myself, nothing about my own nature. The flashes were starting to give me some information, but only slowly and in a piecemeal way. So I'd been homeschooled by a mother I obviously argued with, known how to do differential equations, and had enough nerve to pick out dresses such as the one I would probably wear for eternity. These scant details, however, didn't really tell me anything about myself, whether or not I was a good person. For all I knew, I spent my life kicking puppies or shoplifting underwear. Or worse, obviously, far, far worse. Maybe something I'd done during life, or even at my death, made me deserve the afterlife, Eli insisted, was waiting for me. Had I been a cruel person? Was my life so terrible I'd killed myself? I had no idea. A sudden wave of frustration washed over me. The flashes were so unrelated, so lacking in meaningful detail, I might never know who I'd been or what I could become. I let out an angry puff of air and began to trudge more forcefully down the road. I guess I wasn't paying attention to where I walked because I nearly stumbled over my own feet. Only after I'd steadied myself did I take in my current surroundings, the sight of which angered me further. In my distraction, I'd wandered back to the place I hated most, High Bridge. I was standing right at its entrance. Its metal girders loomed above me, glinting in the yellow moonlight in a way that reminded me of spiteful winking. "Oh, isn't this perfect?" I shouted. My voice sounded childish, echoing back at me from the girders. So, in keeping with my petulant mood, I swung my leg back to kick uselessly at a rock on the shoulder of the road. Before I could complete the kick, a sudden blast of cold air hit my back, running a chill from my neck to my heels. Immediately following, a smooth, familiar voice oozed out from behind me. "You know, Amelia, you can kick it all you want, but that rock isn't going anywhere." I closed my eyes, told myself not to shudder, no matter how appropriate it might feel, and then turned on one heel. I fixed a small, derisive smile on my face. "Eli." My only word of greeting, Eli's lips curled at one corner in amusement. "To what do I owe the pleasure, Amelia?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "Clearly," he said, leaning forward and arching his eyebrows, "you wanted something, otherwise you wouldn't be here." "And why would you think that?" "You sought me out. So far, I've kept my promise to leave you alone." He gestured with one arm to the metal and pavement around us. But you're the one who returned to the bridge like I said you would. I scowled at him. Trust me, it wasn't intentional. Whatever you say, Amelia. He began to turn toward the embankment. Then he looked back at me, and after a moment's consideration, twitched his head toward the river. Why don't you come with me? No thanks. We can talk more comfortably down there. I tried not to laugh. Eli, I thought I made my feelings pretty clear on the subject of hanging out with you in dark places. Eli shook his head. But you do want to talk, don't you? To you? Why would I want to do that? I saw the look on your face before I spoke. You've had a bad night. He stated it like a fact. So? I sounded defensive, and for good reason. I had no intention of letting Eli know why I'd had a bad night. Eli couldn't know where I'd just been. He couldn't even know about Joshua's existence as far as I was concerned. So, Eli said, maybe you'd like to know why you're frustrated since you woke up from the fog. Why you can't quite figure out where you belong. I blinked. How did you... I began, and then I shook my head. Eli couldn't possibly have known what I'd been thinking about before he arrived. He'd just taken a guess, a very good one. I shrugged again. You're right, it would be nice to know some things. But you're delusional if you think I'm going to do whatever you want me to just to get some information. To my surprise, Eli laughed. Fair enough, Amelia. How about I give you what should I call it? A freebie. Meaning? Meaning, I'll give you some details about the afterlife in exchange for nothing but your company for a little while. I raised one skeptical eyebrow. What's the catch? No catch, for now. For now? Well, he sighed, I'll expect you to think about what I tell you tonight and consider it reason enough to come back to me, for good, later. And if I don't? Well, then we'll deal with that problem when we come to it. I bit my lip, confused by how suddenly appealing Eli's proposition sounded. I didn't think I could trust him, nor did I really want to, but I also couldn't resist his offer of information, not at this point. I wanted to know who I was and what happened next. No, I had to know. I nodded as decisively as I could, given my lingering reservations. Okay, Eli, lead the way. Eli looked startled by my sudden agreement. Quickly, though, a pleased smile across his face spread. He rubbed his hands together. Excellent. Without pausing for my response, he spun around and marched down the hill. I took a breath for courage and followed him. Slowly, carefully, I made my way down the grassy slope. Eli waited for me at the bottom of the embankment, feet planted apart and arms folded over his chest. I stopped several yards from him and mirrored his stance. Well, I asked. Eli grinned and ignored my question. How's the temperature, Amelia? Huh? I frowned hard. Even if I was interested in what Eli had to say, I didn't want to fall for any of his tricks, so I felt extremely foolish, not to mention unnerved, when our surroundings suddenly changed. Without further warning, everything melted into a deep charcoal gray and cold air blasted my skin. Looking around me, I gasped. Again, the trees and river had transformed into charcoal and tar. Eli had plunged us back into the place he'd revealed yesterday, the dark afterworld in which I was supposedly doomed to spend eternity. Trapped! The passage of a full day had done nothing to improve this place's appearance. My voice came out timid and wavering when I protested. I thought you said we were just going to talk. Relax, Amelia, Eli said. I'm keeping my promise. I just want to keep it where I'm most comfortable. I peeked above him and past him. Neither the black chasm under the bridge nor the weird moving shapes had appeared yet. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to block out the chill. Okay, fine, but do it fast. And let me go. This place gives me the creeps. Well, he said, why don't we start with this place then? Would you like to know where we actually are? I nodded hesitantly. This is part of the afterlife, like I told you. That's not really reassuring, I murmured, taking in all the black grayness with a roll of my eyes. Eli shook his head. I'm not as bad as you think, Amelia, honestly. Locking his eyes on mine, Eli raised one hand and snapped his fingers. Immediately, the netherworld lightened as if Eli's snap had flipped some kind of supernatural switch. My mouth gaped. With the introduction of just a fraction of light, an entire landscape appeared around me. Granted, it was still in various shades of gray, but the scene itself, and not in color. Its color, it captured my attention. At first glance, the netherworld bore a strong resemblance to the riverbank we had just left. The vague charcoal shapes I'd seen yesterday took one more familiar form. The long prairie grass, enormous trees, and clumps of unruly wildflowers still crowded around us. Each piece of gray plant life, however, differed in slight but significant ways from those in the living world. Here, the tree branches twisted into sinister shapes, like claws and hooks. The wildflowers and grass snarled around each other, looking as if they were in some kind of angry battle. And though the plants indicated that it was late summer in this world too, every surface shimmered and glittered with a fine layer of frost. This netherworld, once illuminated, actually looked like some kind of creepy wonderland, like a double-exposed negative of the living world, cold, dark, scary, and also unbelievably beautiful. Is it always like this here? I breathed. No, Eli answered, his voice low and respectful. It's always gray and cold, but I have the ability to lighten or darken the scenery if I want. Are you the ruler of this world or something? Eli laughed loudly, breaking the spell this place had cast over me. Are you asking me if I'm God, Amelia? Not exactly the entity I meant, I muttered, too low for Eli to hear. No, I'm not one of the higher powers here, he said, although I do work for them. I pulled my eyes away from the fantastic trees and met Eli's gaze. Them? Explain. Eli settled back on his heels. Well, he said, I guess I should start with my job description. I raised my eyebrows, and he sighed. I'm the guardian, in a sense, of this afterlife. I've been commissioned to care for it, to grow it. Grow it? You mean with all the plants? For some reason, Eli's eyes sparkled mischievously. With those and other things. Listen, he commanded, and then cupped his hand to his ear. I obeyed thoughtlessly, clamping my lips tight and focusing on the quiet around me. Initially, I couldn't hear anything except perhaps the weird echo of silence, like the kind you hear when you press your ear to a seashell. Then, just over the silence, I heard them, faint at first, but growing in intensity. Whispers, a chorus of them. Who? I started, but Eli pressed a finger to his lips, indicating I should stay quiet. The whispers continued, hushed and insistent. I couldn't be certain, but after a few more seconds, I thought they sounded desperate, frantic. Something about them frightened me. What are those voices, Eli? I demanded shakily. Tell me now. I think you already know. I think you already know. People, I whispered. Well, he said with a sly grin, they used to be. I gulped, feeling strangely dizzy. What exactly is your job here, Eli? Really? He sighed, as if relieved I'd finally asked an important question. I'm not only a guardian, but also a sort of recruiter. I've been chosen to usher certain newly dead souls to this place. Some of those voices you heard are my charges, souls I was ordering to bring over. Other ghosts? Eli nodded. I think you saw a few of them yesterday, actually. I thought back to the flittering shapes along the peripheral vision. I looked wildly to either side of Eli at the empty riverbank. Where are they now? I told them to stay away for a while so you and I could talk. He jerked his head toward the line of weird trees behind him. Mostly they stay in there until I need them. Are you their boss or something? Eli shrugged, but the gesture looked prideful, almost self-satisfied. I recruit them for my masters. In return, my masters give me power over this place and the recruited souls in it. The souls follow my commands and help me with whatever I need. On big missions, they definitely come in handy. I tried not to shudder, thinking of what a big mission might mean to Eli. And these masters, the ones who gave you this job, are they in those trees too? He laughed as if I'd said something ridiculous. No, of course not, Amelia. This is my realm. Over there, however, he trailed off, looking over my shoulder. I followed his gaze to the place where the river moved sluggishly under High Bridge, to the space where the black hole had appeared yesterday. A few details clicked into place in my mind, and I moaned. You trap people in this world? On orders from whoever lives in that hellhole? Only because this is where these souls belong. And that darkness over there isn't hell. It's just one of the places where the higher powers go when they're not giving me my instructions. Eli sounded sincere, but I shook my head vigorously against his words. No soul deserves to stay in this dark forest, trapped forever, unable to move between worlds like Eli and I obviously could, no matter who or what had ordered it. Thinking about what it might feel like to be trapped inside the dark forest for, God forbid, somewhere in that slightest chasm below the bridge, a thought struck me, a terrifying one. I raised my eyes to his again, searching their pale blue depths. What about me, Eli? What about my soul? The corner of his lip quirked upward. Ah, now we get to the real heart of the matter. Isn't that why we came down here in the first place? To talk about your nature. Yes, and, I pressed, what does my nature have to do with this place? He gestured behind him with one arm. Aren't you wondering why I haven't made you one of those shadows yet? Why I've let you wander? Far longer than I usually allow a soul to remain in the living world. I tried in vain to repress a shudder. Okay, I'll bite. Why? Because you're special, Amelia. He began to take slow, deliberate steps towards me. Yeah? I kept my voice as casual as possible, all the while moving backward away from him. How am I special? Thanks to the grace of my masters, he said, still moving forward. I'm allowed to keep only newly dead soul. I'm allowed to keep one newly dead soul for myself. As an apprentice. When I saw you, when I watched you, I knew you'd be perfect. Why? Because you belong with me, Amelia. You're a kindred spirit. Eli's words echoed in my brain like repetitions of my earlier fears. So I was evil? I was evil? Everything within me rallied against the suggestion. I didn't believe it. I just didn't. No, I insisted, shaking my head again. No, it's not true. I don't belong here. But you do. With just a few quick strides, Eli closed the distance between us. He leaned over and placed his hands beside my shoulders, hovering above my skin without actually touching me. You're fated to help me with my task. I knew it from the first moment I saw you. He shrugged again, but this time the movement looked decidedly less casual. You have to help me, Amelia. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to trap you here and keep you from ever going into the living world again. Unless you're obeying my orders like the mindless wraiths back there. He jerked his head meaningfully toward the forest again. Anger and terror bubbled up inside me. No, I shouted into his face. I can't stay and help you condemn people to this place. I won't. Without waiting for his reaction, which would undoubtedly be unpleasant, I turned to flee. Of course, I had no idea where to flee since I was directionless in this world. I spun around, searching for some point of orientation, flinging my arms this way and that. Something brushed my outstretched hand, Eli's fingertips maybe. Whatever made contact with my skin, it plunged me into a brutal cold, shooting what felt like ice water through my veins. The cold came on so fiercely, so violently, my vision began to blur. I heard Eli call out, Amelia, wait! Then the dark water of my nightmares enveloped me entirely. Whoa. Amelia! Amelia! She can't be evil, no way. She's not evil. We need to figure out who Eli is. And I can't wait to get into chapter 12. Hopefully they'll bring Joshua back, the high school teenager, the athlete who is now her BFF in the real world. I upload all of these videos to my social media accounts and then put them into playlists under the title of the book. So I do have all of these chapters. I'll add this one right now, chapter 11, to my playlist titled Hereafter. Thanks for joining.